Hello, what's up, YouTube? Sorry I haven't uploaded in a while. Basically, what happened is my guild that I was raiding with died to loot drama. How fucking cringe is that? And honestly, I didn't really feel like finding another guild because I didn't want to play Disc Priest. I don't hate myself enough to play Disc Priest, so I just quit this terrible game and moved on to greater pastures. Or at least that's what I would like to tell you that I did. What I actually ended up doing instead was I started leveling characters in Wrath. Yeah. Basically, what I'm starting to realize is that I am truly addicted to this game. Every time I try to quit, I just keep on crawling back for more. So I think it's finally time to admit to myself that I am a slave to this game. And honestly, I should just embrace it. Alright, let's talk about the Hunter. So I love the Hunter and Wrath of Lich King. In my opinion, Hunter is at its peak in terms of class design in Wrath of Lich King. In my mind, it is all downhill from here for the Hunter. Now, initially my intention was to play Marksmanship because it looked really fun. That didn't end up happening because at level 15, everything changed. Every thought that I once had of playing Marksmanship Hunter vanished once I started looking at the glyphs. Now, as you can see here, the major glyphs are pretty decent. You know, you have Glyph of Hunter's Mark, which increases the attack power of Hunter's Mark, not too bad. And you have Glyph of Mending, which increases the healing done by Mend Pet by 40%, which is amazing for leveling. Definitely picking that up. But you know, nothing crazy too far. Nothing crazy. Nothing that really gets the brain juices flowing, you know? But then a bombshell in the form of a minor glyph, of all things. Glyph of Possessed Strength. Increases the damage your pet inflicts while using Eyes of the Beast by 50%. Holy fuckballs. That is a lot of damage. The moment I saw that glyph, I knew that I had to investigate it further and see the potential because to me, that glyph is incredibly strong. Not for DPSing though. For DPSing, there's no universe where this would be better than just shooting your bow. But for tanking, the amount of threat that could be generated by using this glyph could potentially turn Beast Mastery into a real tank spec. Or at least that's what I was thinking at the time. So down the rabbit hole I went. And that, my friends, is where the Beast Mastery Hunter journey began. So to start off, I was leveling with someone at the time. She played a warlock, and the strategy we would use was simple. I would cast Medpet and then immediately hop into Eyes of the Beast and see if I could keep aggro off of her. This actually worked pretty well. So after messing around with that for a few levels, Daddy decided that he wants to do a dungeon now. What you see before you is the first dungeon that we did, and honestly, it went just fine. Now, when it comes to tanking, I'm trying to figure out if this thing can be a real tank spec, not a copium tank spec like shaman tanking. I'm talking about a real tank that doesn't need to get carried. There are 3 criteria that need to be met in order for this to be a real tank spec in my mind. First, you need to be able to maintain threat without anybody playing differently than how they usually play. If you need people to bend over backwards and use all their threat reduction spells perfectly just for you to keep threat, then you are not a real tank. Next, you need to be able to survive, as in you need to have similar mitigation to the other tank classes, which means if the healer has to go keeping you alive every single pull, then you are not a real tank. The third and final thing that needs to be met is you need to be able to pull quickly and efficiently. If you have to waste everyone's time by getting your mana bar back to full after every pull, then in my opinion, you're not a real tank. So does Beast Mastery at this stage fit that criteria? Well, the answer is kind of. In terms of survivability and pulling quickly, Beast Mastery absolutely nails it. In fact, my bear had more health and armor at level 20 than my prop pally did at level 23 with full heirlooms. And on top of that, you have an ability called Cower, which is a 40% damage reduction on a 30-second cooldown. Now that is the bomb diggity, my friends. The limiting factor here, as you can imagine, is threat. At this level, I felt that in order to reliably keep threat, you needed to have a pally in the group giving you Ret Aura. If you have a Ret Aura, then you are absolutely a real tank class. But without it, threat is dicey, especially if the DPSers have heirlooms. Now, a pivotal moment occurs at level 30 when you unlock this talent row. The abilities you get in this row are Bestial Discipline, which increases your focus generation by 100%. That is very helpful for keeping threat. And also you get 10% increased healing received with Spirit Bond. On top of that, you have the Pet Talent tree. And all of the talents you get from here are incredibly strong. Let me just read some of these out for you. This talent here gives you 30% increased attack speed. This one gives you 9% increased damage. These two talents here give you 16% increased stamina and 40% increased healing received. So with Spirit Bond and Blood of the Rhino, you have a total of 50% increased healing received passive. That is insane. And lastly, these two talents here increase your pet's armor by 20% and dodge by 2%. That is a lot of amazing talents for tanking. However, I opted to take the damage talents because at this level, threats seem to be more of an issue than survivability. Now, for additional sexual pleasure, you also get Aspect of the Beast at this level, which is actually better than Aspect of the Hawk since you want your pet to have as much attack power as it can get. Pair that up with Glyph of Aspect of the Beast, and you get even more attack power. Sounds great, right? Well, even though these talents are very powerful for tanking, I still felt that I needed to have a Retribution Aura in order to reliably keep aggro against the strongest DPSers. And there's actually one other issue with keeping threats, and that is the UI. I cannot see when I'm losing aggro against an enemy because the health bars above the enemy only show my hunter's threat. They don't show my pet's threat. So when I lose aggro, the health bars do not change, which means I'm kind of tanking blind, so to speak. It's not that big of an issue, but it is very annoying. Fortunately, a miracle is on the horizon and it makes everything so much easier. At level 44, you get the ability Thunderstomp from your pet's talent tree. This ability does a lot of AoE damage and generates a lot of threat as well. This ability is so strong that you no longer need to have Ret Aura in order to keep aggro, even if the mobs are higher level than you. This is where, in my mind, Beast Mastery becomes a real tank spec, as all three criteria are now met. And on top of that, you're constantly getting talent points that make your pet stronger and stronger. You have Frenzy, 100% chance to increase your pet's attack speed by 30% after a critical hit. Animal Handler, 10% additional attack power, which is very nice. Serpent Swiftness, 20% additional attack speed. That's 3 different talents that increase attack speed, by the way. Your pet attacks like a fucking machine gun. Then you have Longevity, which reduces the cooldown of your pet's special abilities by 30%, which means Thunder Stomp and Swipe have a reduced cooldown. Kindred Spirits increases your pet's damage by 20%. And then lastly, Bestial Mastery, which gives you 4 additional talent points, which is absolutely insane since all of those talents in the pet tree are incredibly strong. This right here was the peak for me in terms of playing this class. I was getting compliments left and right. People were like, holy shit, I didn't know Hunter could tank like that. Holy fuck, that's so cool what you're doing. And the whole time I was like, oh, yeah. Oh, it was marvelous. I felt so much joy in my life. I felt like everything was going to be okay until level 60 happened, where it all came crashing down. Now, one thing you need to know about pets is that they scale poorly. That was all well and good while I was progressing through the talent tree and getting all those crazy talents that buff my pet. But at level 60, there are no more talents that buff your pet, and the lack of scaling really catches up to you. I no longer felt that I could tank dungeons without a Retribution Aura, and I could feel my damage starting to slip away, especially on single target. It didn't help that the majority of rep allies that I grouped with liked to taunt things. I fucking hate them! God, I really hate those rep allies. There was a glimmer of hope, though. There was. It's not all bad. I might have been on suicide watch at this moment in time, but it's really not all that bad, okay? Because at level 66, you get a really great ability called Kill Command. This is a really great spell for getting Snap Threat on the pole. It increases the damage of your next special ability, that ability ideally being Thunderstomp, by 60%. And on top of that, there are talents that improve Kill Command. Focus Fire increases your pet's critical strike chance by 20% while Kill Command is active, and Cat-like Reflexes reduces the cooldown of Kill Command by 30 seconds. On top of that, you can pair Kill Command up with Bestial Wrath for even more damage. Watch this right here. I pop all my cooldowns, I run in, 3, 2, 1, boom. You see that? Oh, that is some big ass fucking damage, let me tell you. So for those of you keeping track, you'll have 50% increased damage from Glyph of Possessed Strength, another 50% increased damage from Bestial Wrath, 60% increased damage from Kill Command, and 20% increased crit chance from Focus Fire. Put that all together, and my bear is one big, bad booty daddy if I've ever seen one. And you know, doing dungeons from level 66 to 70 was a vibe, honestly. It wasn't too bad. And on top of that, you can purchase these bad boys on the auction house at level 70, which are really strong. Also at level 70, you get Misdirect, which is nice for bosses, but for trash, I personally think it's better to just use Eyes of the Beast and charge in. Not too much to say about the level 70 to 80 bracket. However, I could definitely feel the lack of pet scaling starting to eat away at me. Even with Retribution Aura, I was no longer top dam, and mobs didn't really stick to me the way that they used to. But overall, it was bearable. Anyways, let's move on to level 80. So the question we must answer, is this raid viable? Well, let's first start talking about the pets. Throughout the entire leveling process, I used the bear. The reason I did that is because the bear has swipe, which is a nice form of consistent AoE damage, which is perfect for dungeons. However, there is one other pet that can be considered, and that is the crocodile. The croc special ability is Bad Attitude. Speaks to me already. All this ability does is it gives you a Retribution Aura-like effect for 45 seconds. But the cooldown is twice as long as the effect, so it's only active for half the time. Because of this, I consider the croc to be far too risky for dungeon tanking. However, for single target damage, it is far and away the best pet, and single target damage is what really matters for raiding. So, if this were to be raid viable, I strongly suspect that people would use the croc instead of the bear, and unfortunately the rest of the tenacity pets are complete useless trash from what I can tell. Fortunately for me, the PTR was up, so I could do a little bit of testing. I decided to grab all PvP gear and get as much stamina as I could get my hands on. Then I started optimizing the single target rotation. This was a difficult task, because I had to make all these fucking weak auras and all these friggin' macros to optimize this shit, because the single target rotation is really hard. But let me show you what it looks like. So the way this works is you use Hunter's Mark, Intimidation, Misdirection, and Mend Pet before the pull. Then you immediately go into Steady Shot, and during your Steady Shot cast, you want to right-click the boss to start auto-attacking. The reason you want to do that is because you want to fit in 2 ticks of Mend Pet during your 4-second misdirection window, since Mend Pet generates a lot of threat. After doing the Steady Shots and Arcane Shot, you pop all of your cooldowns with Eyes of the Beast. You ideally want 2 Thunderstorms to happen during Bestial Wrath, while also using Bad Attitude as early as possible, and then you bite as much as possible during Bestial Wrath. After that, you're just managing the Frenzy debuff. Basically, whenever this Frenzy weak aura shows up, I start spamming Claw because I'm trying to fish for critical strikes to maintain the buff. Eventually, Misdirection will come off cooldown, and you'll repeat what you just did over and over again. Mana will eventually become an issue, so you'll need to start using Aspect of the Viper as well. Now, unfortunately, I cannot do a proper test of this in a raid setting because I just don't have the people to make that happen. But I do have this little clip of me fighting this trash in Onyxia with a Ret Pally and a Holy Pally alongside me. This does not go very well because I didn't realize that the trash puts a debuff on you that reduces your armor by 75%, so my pet basically just gets raped. However, I did survive long enough to see that threat is definitely an issue. In fact, if the fight went on for a little bit longer, the Red Pally would have definitely overtaken me. Now again, this is not a great test, but if I were to guess what would happen in a proper raid setup with full raid buffs along with tricks and misdirects on my pet, I would guess that the threat still isn't quite there. It's almost there, but in my opinion, it's just not quite there. Perhaps with gear that isn't all stamina gems, the threat could be there, but then again, you'll lose a lot of survivability if you do something like that. Speaking of survivability, I do believe that the pet is tanky enough for raid bosses. Note that pets double dip from raid buffs since they take a portion of their stats from the hunter. So you can buff the pet, and then you can buff the hunter, and the pet becomes big and huge since they benefit from both of those buffs. So, if I were to guess how much stats a pet could have in a proper raid, I would wager to say that 40 to 45k health is achievable, and perhaps 25 to 30k armor, which is workable, I would think, considering pets take 50% increased healing received from all sources, and you could probably get 20% additional armor through your talents, although you would sacrifice damage and threat in order to do that. This is the spec that I personally think works the best, and it's the one that I used the majority of the time. Now, let's just assume that the pet does have enough stats to tank a raid. Would people actually be willing to bring it over a regular tank class? I would say no. It's just a little bit too unorthodox to play, and there's too many things that can go wrong since your hunter needs to be channeling most of the time. Also, you do have a taunt, but it's on a 2-minute cooldown. So I'd say the future of this spec looks pretty grim for endgame. However, there is one boss that BM Hunter would be amazing on, and that is Anubarak. Anubarak does an ability in Phase 3 that demolishes the entire raid with AoE damage, including the tanks. One perk of being a pet is that you take 90% reduced AoE damage from all sources. In fact, pets do not seem to take any damage from this ability at all. And another perk of being a pet is that you can be rezzed infinitely. So, if the stats were there for Hunter tanking to be a real thing in raids, I would suspect that BM Hunter would be the best tank to use on this specific boss. With that said, my journey with the BM Hunter is now over. It was full of ups and downs, but at the end of the day, it was a lot of fun. I'd like to thank my friend Sarah, aka Plow Through Me, for helping me level and doing PTR with me. This video would not have been possible without her. We had a great time. She's basically my right arm at this point. And you know what I use that for? Yeah. I'd also like to thank Valorhand for hopping on the PTR with me and destroying all of my hopes and dreams by getting aggro off of me in 30 seconds. Unfortunate, but that's the way it went. Anyways, I'm beat. Thank you for watching. This costume makes it very hard to breathe and to talk, so I'm just going to go now. See you later. Bye-bye.